Hi class, welcome back to EED 675 Bilingual and Multilingual Teaching Strategies. So last week you got a chance to look at the new ELD standards and how they are aligned with Common Core state standards. This week we are going to be continuing that discussion. We're going to continue to look at the new ELD standards, how they are related to the Common Core standards, and how this informs our lesson planning. You will be reading Chapter 2 of the ELA/ELD framework for the state of California. In this chapter, they do a few things. First, they identify what is ELD. Also, they identify what is ELD that is integrated versus designated ELD. In many states, there is no designated ELD time. You are expected to use integrated ELD throughout the day. In other words, you are integrating language learning strategies with content throughout the day. Now, in LAUSD, for example, many teachers do what is called integrated, but they also have a specific time set aside each day for English language development. So, in other words, that is a designated ELD time. Now, as you go through this week's PowerPoint slide, you have a few activities. Your first activity is that you are going to look at a lesson from about the American Revolution. This just so happens to be a social studies lesson. You're going to examine the lesson plan, and then you are going to critique it as it relates to what would be difficult for an English language learner who is trying to complete this particular lesson. In order to help you with that, in your handouts for this week, you'll look at a page that says Analyzing Textbook Language. And I want you to have that out as you look at that lesson plan for your Activity 1. Now, as you go through, you have two choices for Activity 2 this week. Your first choice is to look at an actual segment of a Smarter Balance test, and you're going to think about, again, what would be difficult for ELLs? What would they need to know in order to be successful with that particular test? Now, if you decide not to do Activity 2 in terms of the Smarter Balance, you do have another option for Activity 2 this week. Your second option is to look at a series of clips, and I've given you the link inside of the PowerPoint, to look at a series of clips of a teacher who is giving a Common Core/ELD lesson. What is this teacher doing well? What is she doing to help students to analyze the text, which they talk about quite a bit in our readings for the week? All right, your third activity, once again, you have two options. Your third activity, you are going to use Dr. Collier's ELD/Common Core lesson planning checklist, which again is in the lecture handouts in this week's Moodle. Okay, you are going to look at my lesson planning checklist. Now, one of the key things I have as part of that checklist are creating language objectives and content objectives. I cannot impress upon you how important it is to have language and content objectives, because if you have language objectives, it tells you the how, but the content objectives are the what. In other words, what do you need the students to know, and exactly how are you going to scaffold their language development in order to receive the content? Okay, so for your Activity 3, you are going to either create your own little lesson plan outline based upon my checklist, or you can go back to the American Revolution lesson and analyze that and redesign it to make it more appropriate for English language learners. Okay, so that's a very quick overview of what you'll be doing for this week in terms of your online module. Now, just some basic housekeeping stuff. We have several students in this class who are a part of a cohort, and they're graduating this semester. So I've decided to make modifications to the course to make sure that everyone can successfully complete the course. Now, I've done a few things to change the syllabus. So when you go up to where the materials are, you'll notice that it says Revised Syllabus. First things first, I have decided to get rid of the midterm, okay? So that means that you only have 3 key assignments that you'll be completing for this course. One is just your online participation, your weekly online participation. 2 is your literature review, and 3 is your class research project. One note about the literature review. In the literature review, I originally had it as 5 to 6 pages. I'm taking it down to a minimum of 3 pages. Now, there are just a few things I have to say. With the literature review, the key idea is to synthesize what you see in the research. Now, by now, hopefully, some of you all are starting to think about topics that are of interest to you as related to English language learners and best practices. For those of you in the STEM, as I mentioned before, some of you might be looking at English language learners and best practices for STEM integration. Some of you might be looking at English language learners and problem solving in mathematics. For the rest of you, some of you might be looking at English language learners and code switching. Some of you all might be looking at bilingual students and how they use the first language in the home. Whatever you're looking at, I encourage you to use a variety of search terms. For example, we don't always refer to students who speak English as a second language as ELLs. You could call them second language speakers of English. Some of them are referred to as TESOL students, right? Teaching English to speakers of other languages. Some of them might be referred to as ESL students. So you have to be careful about playing around with your search terms. If you're not sure about particular search terms, then by all means, actually, as a matter of fact, I would like for you all to send me a personal email that just says, "Hi, Dr. Collier, this is the idea that I'm playing around with for my literature review." If you have any recommendations for search terms, then by all means, that would be great. Some of you probably already have some great articles already. So if you don't feel the need to help me, for me to help you brainstorm with your search terms, that's okay. But please just shoot me a quick email to let me know what you're thinking about your literature review, and I'll add a block to the Moodle. So hopefully, if you haven't emailed me, then we can brainstorm there as well. The second modification, or actually the other modification I made, is that for the class research project, I have decided to allow that to be either individual, in pairs, or even in a group, okay? Individual, you have a 10-page minimum. For pairs, you have a 15-page minimum. For groups, it just depends on how many are in there, so you all will need to either contact me so we can kind of work through those, the changes. Now, since you all do not have a midterm anymore, I do request that you give me a rough draft of your research project by 10/28. That was the original date that we had planned for the midterm. I don't expect it to be perfect, but I do want to see that you have gotten started with it. Now, one more thing that I have added, or actually a few more resources I have added, if you look up from this video into the main area that has the literature review, you'll see something that says research project supplements. So again, I've put this is particularly for those of you all that are thinking about doing a case study. I've included several assessments in there for you that you can use to explore a student's English language development. If you're still not sure on what assessments to use, then again, contact me, okay? The other thing is that I am going to also add kind of a quick 675 research project brainstorm. I'm looking for my Word version of that. If I can't find it, then I'll just upload a PDF. If you all could just shoot that to me as soon as possible. That's not so urgent, but just again, to help me think about or help make sure that you all are on the right track. So if you want to send me that along with your kind of literature review brainstorm, you can. If you want to hold off for that to a later date, you can as well. All right. So again, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to email me. I'm in my office most days, well, Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, usually pretty much most of the day until about 5 o'clock, but just email me ahead of time if you definitely know you want to stop by. Okay, everyone have a great week. If you have any questions, again, contact me, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.